4 important things I wish I knew before I started watercolor. So if you're new to watercolor, these tips are really going to help you get started. I know I don't do a huge amount of watercolor on my channel, but watercolor is a really big part of urban sketching and my sort of line and wash style. So I keep returning to it as a sort of key theme, really. So just before we start with number 1, I want to say there's a Watercolor Fundamentals course coming up next year, which is going to be a really good multi-part course. It might be sort of 10-15 episodes, and I'm going to be going through lots of very, very detailed things. So look out for that. Like, subscribe, check out my Patreon, all that jazz. Right, should we get started? So number 1, it's all about water. So it's important to understand that watercolor is a transparent medium. Now, the level of transparency is slightly dictated by how much water you put into a mix. So if we start with a small amount of watercolor, you can clearly see we get a sort of tea-like consistency. And if I mix more in, more pigment, what we're going to get is a thicker consistency, which is probably a bit more like sort of coffee there. And then if we go even more, as you can see, that's a thicker consistency there, which I would sort of describe as a bit more like sort of soupy, or, I guess you could say. But then if we go even more and make sure there's very little water on that brush, that's going to be a lot more pigment on there. And that's a lot more jammy. Now, the transparency doesn't always depend on the amount of pigment you put in, because each paint has its own sort of transparent characteristics, and sometimes you can use a very pigmented wash and it'll still be quite transparent. Generally, as a rule, the more diluted your wash, the more transparent it's going to appear. So what happens if you go even further? Well, if you go even further, it's difficult to actually paint, and what you find is, particularly with rough paper like this, which has quite a tooth on it, because you've got pigment but very little water, you get this broken line here. You see how it's just breaking up. Now that as an effect can be really useful if you're painting water and things like that. You'd be amazed the amount of times that I put water down, clean water down, before I actually do anything else in a painting, and I'll show you why that is. So if I was to put a band of water across here, so let's take some magenta rosa, which is a lovely purple paint here from my deep light palette. I might move that down there so you can see a bit. So I'm just taking some raw pigment, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to drop it in at the end there. Let's get a bit more on there. Right, so I've just dropped in some of that pink pigment on the end. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to get some of this lovely primary blue, which I'm running out of. I'm just going to drop this here in the middle. Now what you've noticed here is that I'm putting on the paint in the same way that I put the paint on here. I'm just dabbing it on, really. But one of the things you notice straight away is, because I've put water on first, what's happening is it's diffusing off into that water. So some of that pigment is floating off on the surface of the water because it's still wet. So you're going to get these soft edges. And watercolor is really a lot about a mixture of hard and soft edges. And, whether it's skies or whether it's textures, a lot of the techniques that I like to see in watercolor is this combination of hard and soft. Now, this is a very pigmented color, so this is quite a different feel to it there. So those are going to move around and do their own thing. If you tilt the paper up, it's going to change the way that pigment floats about on the paper. So that's something to experiment with. I've just left it flat here so it sort of relaxes. But the other thing you can do is you can move that pigment around. So say, for example, if I was to wet the brush and just put some clean water on and just put a single dot of that in the middle there, I might put another one on. What that's going to do is it's going to lift up that pigment and float it around, and that's a back run. Putting the water down first, where would you, how would you normally use that technique? Well, I can show you. I should probably let that fine liner dry a little bit, but I'm just going to go in, put some water in here. This technique of floating pigment out onto water I would say I use the most really when it comes to doing skies. So I do have a whole series about how to paint skies. Check that out. Just search on my channel for that. Oh, great. So normally you would have some darkness at the top, and I'm being really rough about how I'm dabbing this in. And then what I'm going to do is the clouds come down a bit further to the horizon. It would normally go up. It normally goes a bit paler, but also the clouds are going to get a little bit smaller. So I'll put in some sort of straighter lines there like that. Oh, a bit too fussy. So that's just a really simple technique there for doing skies, and you could do them with different colors. You can put some shadows under the clouds if you're working quite big on a big piece of paper. So just as a real basic outline, I think that shows you how water is really important when you're mixing paint before you apply it, but it's also important in the application. Tip number 2, mixing your own greys. Now, a lot of palettes, particularly for beginners, are going to come with black and white paint, and a lot of people think if you mix those together you can make a grey. And yes, you can, but it's a horrible gloopy mess, because if you mix white with any of your watercolors on your palette, you're going to reduce the transparency of that pigment, and it can end up looking quite cakey, and not in a good way. We all love cake. I love cake. So much cake. I would love a cake right now. I would go for a Victoria sponge, fresh out the fridge, so it was cold and jammy, and a lovely hot cup of tea. I'm thinking about cake. Oh, that's all I can think of. Now, I discovered pretty early on in my watercolor career that there's 2 colors that I often like to mix together to make a grey. There's some French ultramarine here, so it's going to granulate a little bit. I don't mind that. It's such a beautiful color. And then I'm going to take some bark. Now, this is a deep, deep light equivalent, I think, of like a Van Dyke brown. But you can see as I mix those together, it's gonna basically become a grey. Now, the reason why I quite like doing that is because it actually has a lot more transparency and vibrancy, and it's got a lot more interesting pigments. And often, if I'm mixing a grey up, the way I like to do it, so what I'll do is I'll take some of my primary blue, French ultramarine blue, something like that, as I said before. I'll do it again, and then I'll take some of this bark. I might take a tiny bit of burnt umber as well, and I'll just dot that in, and then I'll leave it like sort of like that. So I don't know whether you can see it, that's not fully mixed. So there's an awful lot of pigment floating around in there. See, when I pick that up, there's a blue bit, and there's a slightly grey bit. Hopefully this is coming along in the thing. And then what I might do is add a little bit more brown, just mix that in. And then if I want to, I can add a bit more blue here. So what I'm doing is, as the wash goes across, there's some variation in it. It's going blue, brown, blue, brown, blue, brown. So there's a lot of different ways we can mix greys, and you can also mix them with sort of slightly different colours to get some different effects. If you wanted a warmer grey, you know, one thing I often use is I use the French ultramarine. Hopefully you can see here the French ultramarine, and I'll put a little bit of orange in that. And obviously the more orange you put in, the warmer it gets, and that's going to give you a really nice warm grey with a lot more red in than that blue grey. Tip number 3, varying your washes. So as I said earlier, one of the biggest mistakes I see beginners making is when it comes to the application of watercolour is they'll choose a colour, they'll mix up a consistency of wash, and they'll just apply that in one go over a surface. And there's nothing wrong with that, particularly if you're going to go back in and add in variation and texture. That's fine. But you're sort of missing a trick there, because you can actually get sort of double duty with any flat wash. Right, so I could go and mix some grey, and I have some here pre-mixed for this building. So I'm going to use that as a base, but I'm going to change it, add to it as we go. So say, for example, if you wanted to use that grey here, that's going to give you a nice mix. But what if you added a little bit of, just a tiny bit of orange into that corner, and then you're going to mix some more up. So we're going to mix as we go across the page. So here's a little bit more darker pigment here. Actually, I might make that, yeah, across there. And then I'll put a little bit more of that orange in as I go. And then why not a little bit of the raw sienna? That's quite a nice pigment. Let's put a little bit of raw sienna in there, because sometimes with brickwork it can vary. We'll put a dodge of that raw sienna in that corner. I mean, you could always put a tiny bit of yellow in there just to give a slight green tinge, which sometimes happens. And then a little bit more red. And then I'm going to go back to the original. I'm adding a few sort of random colours as we go here now. So hopefully you can see here, I've got some kind of tear on this paper, such is life. So the whole point of this is, as you're putting a flat colour on, you don't put a flat colour on, is you vary it as it goes across. Tip number 4, shadows and black. When it comes to doing shadows, it's not just a case of adding black, or often just adding grey. So let's take some really simple examples here. So let's assume for these 3 cubes that they are all the same thing. So this is the base colour of the object, its lightest colour. So I'm going to mix myself up a little bit of this French ultramarine and then some of my bark here, which is what I showed you earlier, how I create my grey mix. So it's almost as if the sun is coming from up there, coming down. Right, so if I was to take shadow values and put them on here, so that's going to give us value number 2 there. Now for the next one, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take more of this orange pigment that I used before, which again is this deep, deep light rosehip, and I'm going to take that and I'm going to apply that to the 2 shadow sides. Right, now for the third one, so for this one I'm going to take some more of that rosehip, but I'm going to add in a little bit of primary blue there, just a tiny bit, and a little bit more pigment. So we need to do the next layer of shadow. So for the next layer on this one, I'm going to use some more of this grey. And I'm going to pop that on there like that. And for the next layer of this one, I'm going to take some sort of neat pigment, or neater pigment, and I'm going to put that on there like that. And then on this final one here, I'm going to just mix up a little bit more blue and some more of that pigment, and I'm going to just apply that on here. Right, so we can see the final comparison now. Now, again, this might just be a personal preference, but I often think that applying grey to a shadow area is a good thing if it's sort of grey masonry to begin with. It sort of makes sense. So but it doesn't work for other colours. It just doesn't work. You know, say for example, if you have a red building or a pink building, or a tree, or like the shadow that's actually within trees, under a tree on grass, a grey isn't going to work. It needs to be a mixture of the actual colour of the thing with a little bit of blue in there. If you just add more pigment, so this is pigment here, again, what you're doing is you're actually increasing the colour saturation. So the object looks different colours on different sides. So it looks like it's a light pink on top, but a dark pink on the side. So as a sort of shortcut, you can use pigment plus a bit of blue, or pigment plus a bit of grey, but it wants to be a mixture of those things. How warm or cool you make your shadows depends on the day. It depends on what's going on around you, whether it's sort of sunset, midday, or whatever. Some of you may have been wondering what paints I've been using today. Well, these are deep, deep light watercolours. Now, I'm a big fan of these. They do some wonderful pigments, and they're a really interesting company doing some really interesting things. As I'm an ambassador for deep, deep light paints, they give me a discount code, which means that you get 10% off if you purchase anything from their website. And they do deliver to the USA. And that discount code is DEEPJOY, all one word, DEEPJOY, and that'll get you 10% off, so do try that. So here's some close-ups of this deep light palette, and you see how beautiful the paints are. And watercolour really is a magical media. It's very joyful, it can be very spontaneous, it can have an awful lot of life about it, and I think it is very much underestimated. You know, we tend to think of watercolours as these delicate little landscapes that you see in sort of charity shops and things like that, but actually it can be quite punk. You know, I think it can be quite a rock and roll media, but you just have to approach it with some confidence and some splashes, and, you know, don't be afraid of really putting too much pigment on. So one more final tip that I'm going to share with you is, you know, there's very little pressure in this process. Say, for example, if you don't like any of this, you just literally put some more paint on there, you know, reactivate that watercolor, and then you get some tissue, secrets, trade secrets, and you just pull that off there. Now you're going to get a bit of residual staining left, but not much. And if you're reapplying pigment to it, it's not going to change anything. So there's often an undo with watercolor, but the most important thing to remember is just to have fun. You know, be bold, make mistakes. It's only paper and nobody dies. Well, hopefully. I mean, if somebody dies in a watercolor lesson, it's something weird's happening. So thanks for stopping by, and we'll see you again. Have a stroll around the channel, there's loads. All right, bye-bye.